Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Find Your Finish Line. I've taken a bit of a hiatus due to some travel, grandson's Little League games, and getting some writing done for my second book, which hopefully will be out next year. But now we're back, and I've got a fantastic guest today. But before we get started, coaches, be sure to check out TriDot and RunDot training platforms for your athletes. And also, everyone, check out the TriDot Community Forum at community.tridot.com, because on that forum, you can ask questions of TriDot legends like Mark Allen, McKeely Jones, Craig Alexander, Mirinda Carfrey, Tim O'Donnell. And on the RunDot side, Meb Keflezighi. How great is that? So tune in to the Legends Live, which I MC and run, and it's fantastic because you can ask questions of all the legends, and we'll answer them right there on the air. My guest today, I'm very excited to have her on. She doesn't know this yet, but I am also a hip replacement person. She suffered from a congenital hip dysplasia, and she was the first person to finish the Boston Marathon in April with a double hip replacement. She's a mom, wife from Houston. Carrie Bradshaw, welcome to Find Your Finish Line.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. And I had no idea that you were part of the Bionic Club.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it.
I'm so excited.
So my first question to all my guests, Carrie, it's always the same one. What kind of workout did you get in today?
Well, I almost skipped it, but I knew you were going to ask that.
You were prepared.
You saved me. I have you to thank for running today. It was pouring rain. It's been pouring rain all night and this morning. And I was like, I really don't want to go do my run right now. But I knew that I was like, I have to, because Mike's going to ask me, did you work out today? So I got my run in the pouring rain. People probably thought I was a little crazy out there, but I got it done because of you. And thank you, because I'm glad I got it done.
Well, you know, all of us type A personalities, for goodness sakes. Every time I ask the question and somebody didn't get a workout in there, like, you can see the guilt just flow across their face. I almost do that for the humor of it too. So it's good.
Yeah.
Well, your story is very inspirational.
Thank you.
And to me, I believe it's inspirational because obviously going through the double hip replacement, you had dysplasia, you had a lot of pain running races, but yet you had this huge goal at the end of it all that you wanted to run another marathon. So take us back, because you've done 10 marathons or so, a bunch of halves. Were you hurting with all the races, or did it come on gradual, or did it come on like, wow, all of a sudden something's going on with my hips?
Probably like most of us, my whole life, I played competitive soccer. And like I've said, I've run 10 marathons, Boston in 2015. I always suffered from lower back pain, like severe lower back pain. And looking back, my hips didn't bother me necessarily, but my lower back. And looking back, it was due to my deformed hips. My back was compensating. So yes, I had signs all along, like the back pain. And I remember, like, in my 30s, I would have to go to the chiropractor more often because I would start having nagging hip pain and my pelvis would get out of alignment. So there were signs. I kind of brushed them off. I had some pain. After kids is when it was the straw that broke the camel's back. One day I was on my run. I had been ignoring the subtle signs. I was age 40. After 2 kids, I was going for a morning run, and my left leg, like, literally, all I can describe it as is it locked up. The bones were grinding together. It was the weirdest feeling. That was kind of my, whoa, what's going on moment. I limped home. Fast forward, I started seeing specialists. I was in denial. And that's when I got my diagnosis after some imaging that I had something called congenital. I was born with a congenital hip dysplasia. And I had no idea what that was.
And so when you were born, was it the sockets what didn't form completely?
Yeah, supposedly, the sockets, hip dysplasia means that, your hip sockets didn't form correctly. They don't cover the ball of the hip all the way, and which means that over time, it leads to arthritis. And dysplasia is the number one cause of arthritis in young adults. So by the time I went in for my surgery, it was already, I have pictures. They're pretty gnarly. My surgeon took pictures. It was bone on bone, like I was 75 years old or 80.
Yeah, and we'll go in because as I told you off air, I did get a right hip replacement. It's about like 4 years now, maybe 5 years now. But did you go through like I did and say, you know what? Because I was in denial, even though the pain was there. Did you go through like blood plasma transfusions, a lot of PT, Tylenol, whatever you could do to get through the workouts?
Everything you just named. I was desperate to avoid. I mean, I was scared. The word hip replacement to a runner or to a triathlete sounds like a death sentence, right? I did lots of PT because I was like, well, maybe that, in that movie Dumb and Dumber, well, you're saying there's still a chance that I can make this will go away. Maybe it's just all in my head, right? I can make it go away. I did PRP. That was super expensive. When they take your blood and spin it around.
I did that too. Yes.
Yeah, that was like $5,000.
It was ridiculous, but I figured,
yes. I mean, it did give me a little bit of relief for a few weeks. I mean, looking back, I probably shouldn't have done that, but I did PT. I did anti-inflammatories. They did help and give me a little bit of relief, but I saw a lot of surgeons along the way before I found Dr. Stocks, who's my miracle surgeon. And the surgeons were telling me you can't run with hip replacements because they were worried that they would wear out over time, the wear and tear. But they were telling me to hold off as long as I could, like 5 to 10 years. So here I was, because they're like, you're a little bit too young for a hip replacement, but you're too old now with the arthritis to get something that's called a PAO, where they basically cut your pelvis apart for dysplasia. And it's a lot worse of a recovery actually than a hip replacement. So I was kind of in this purgatory. I kept searching, and that's when I found Dr. Stocks after, while I was doing all of this stuff to try to avoid surgery. I found Dr. Stocks who said confidently that he thought I could get back to running, and he was able to back it up with his evidence.
Yeah, it's interesting because even though, and my surgeon's an Ironman athlete, and I said, what's it going to be like afterwards? And mine was just one hip, the right hip. Because you can be riding and everything. If you run a lot, this thing only lasts 30 years. I go, dude, I'm in my late 60s. I don't care. Yeah. I mean, I want to keep running. But you're 40 years old. So maybe the doctor's looking at that and going, well, you could wear them out in 20 years if you keep up the mileage. Was that the conversation?
Yeah, that was a lot of doctors' fears. Like I said, I live in Houston. We have the med center. I interviewed the best of the best, but that was their concern. And ultimately, there's just not enough research yet. And we can talk more about that, which I'm kind of the guinea pig or one of the guinea pigs with this. Dr. Stocks, I was asking him like, okay, I was so happy to hear, yeah, I think you can run again. He didn't know I'd get back to Boston in 2 years, but he was backing. I asked him, I'm like, well, I was playing devil's advocate. Like, tell me why all of these other doctors are telling me no, and you're telling me that you feel confident I can get back to running. No guarantees. He said, the technology, there's just not enough data and research on it yet. And from what I have seen, and I have some athletes, their hips look the same. When he does the x-rays look the exact same as when he put them in 20 years ago. And he's seeing great results. He's not sure like how long he told me he wouldn't be surprised if I never have to have a revision. However, just to play it safe, we had that conversation like you were just asking, where it was, okay, hypothetically, let's say your new hip or hips can make it 30 years, but you want to run a lot and maybe do a few marathons. Would you be willing to accept, Carrie, that you get 20 to 25 years out of them versus 30 to 35 before you need a revision? And I said, heck yeah, I'll take 5 or 10 years. And we don't even know if that's even going to happen.
Right.
So I'm willing to take that chance that I'm going to have a revision. And I'm assuming I will. He said, you may not. And at that point, I'll be 60, 70, maybe older. And it's like, by that time, the technology will probably be even better. And he said all it would be was they would just need to put in a new cup, which would still be a surgery, but it's not like getting the total hip replacement again. And I'll take it. I'll go in for another surgery.
Yeah, exactly. And I have no doubt, Carrie, you're going to be running around and running faster than your grandkids when you're 70. So
I hope so.
they're in for a hell of a ride when they see how fast grandma runs. So,
Awesome.
you were kind of a guinea pig because you had mentioned that you couldn't find anyone like yourself. You couldn't, which kind of blew me away, that nobody else had a double hip replacement and kind of went back to running. There was nobody out there, was there?
Marathons. I trust me.
Right.
I did a lot of research. I stayed up late, probably like you did when you're in pain, waking you up during the middle of the night. And I would I wanted a young athlete, not even a runner, who could get back to being competitive. I wasn't looking to just run or walk a 5K. I wanted to go back to Boston. That was kind of the goal. And I could not find anyone. I think I found one man who had run one. He was older. Not Boston, but he was not a competitive runner. Basically, to go back to your question, no, I could not find anybody like me, my age, who had gone back to competing at the level that I wanted to compete in a marathon.
Now, the recovery process, I'm aware of what the recovery was. I was happy with the time of my recovery, but the 2 to 3 weeks afterwards were tough because you're moving slow, the whole deal. But you go and get your left hip done, and 5-6 weeks later, let's do the other one because you're having a double hip replacement. I just can't imagine the pain and here the left one's getting good and you're feeling well, and all of a sudden you do the right one and you're back at square one. Mentally, how'd you get through that mentally?
Well, it was 5 to 6. It was 5 months, not 5 weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry. 5 months. Okay.
Honestly, what's the difference, right? So I had recovered. I was doing well. Did you have the posterior procedure or the anterior?
Post from the side back.
Yeah. The new one is the anterior, but we can talk about the pros and cons of that. I got Dr. Stocks prefers the posterior, and it's a longer recovery. Mm-hmm. You remember it was hard getting in and out of bed for a couple weeks. Right. And, I had my first one done November 2022, and I had dysplasia on both hips, but my left hip was the first one to go. It was the main problem. The right one was doing quote unquote, okay. We thought I had a few years before I would need the right one done. Because trust me, if I had it done in November 2022, insurance ends in December 31st. You start over. I would not have had them 5 months apart in different calendar years with our insurance plan, because if I would have done them both in the same year, 5 weeks apart, it would have been buy one, get one free. So, you know what I mean? I had to end up paying for it twice. Right. Like I said, we thought I had more time, but I think what happened is during my recovery with my left one, my right hip had to overcompensate and kind of help out.
Of course.
And it wore out a lot faster than we thought it would. So I started experiencing the symptoms, and I knew what it was. I went in for the MRI, and they were like, well, you can hang on a little longer. And at that point, after seeing how good the recovery was with the first, I was like, no, let's knock it out. I'm not doing that thing where we wait around to try everything and we're in purgatory. Let's just knock it out.
Yeah. This is, Carrie, this is a little unusual, and people that listen to the podcast, I don't talk a lot about myself. It's about the guests and about you, but I've got to tell you the story. Dr. Freeman, good friend of mine who did mine, orthopedic surgeon out of Sharp Hospital in San Diego. He's done 10, 12 Ironmans, a stud. And so he comes into my room the next morning. He goes, I got good news and bad news. I go, what are you telling me that for? I'm laying in the bed. I don't want to hear that. And he goes, well, the good news is, he replaced the right hip. Your left hip is fine. Checked it out. You'll never need one, the whole deal. But your right hip, remember I told you you'd have this small, 3-inch scar, and the surgery would take about an hour. Well, you got about a 6-7 incher there, and the surgery took me almost 2.5 hours. You had so much debris and arthritis and crap in there. I had to do some serious cleaning out. But that was the good news and bad news of it. I'm going, I want to hear that, for God's sakes. So when you started your process after the second surgery of getting back, obviously walking with a walker and the whole deal, did you set a goal and said, hey, I want to run a half mile or 20 yards or something in 4 weeks or 5 weeks? Did you have any set standard goals for yourself?
Yes. Hang on to that thought because I have to go back to you for a second. When I went into my first surgery, because I was kind of like, am I making this up in my head? I don't know what's going on. I wanted evidence. I wanted pictures. I was hoping that he would come out and say it was awful in there because then I would feel like I wasn't a wimp. So that should make you feel pretty tough. I was glad to hear it was terrible. It was bone on bone. It's good that you got it done. So I don't know. It brought me peace of mind, but you were like, oh, great. Like, I don't know. It reassured me that I made the right choice, basically. Yeah. But yeah, that goals. Okay. So goals. Ultimately, before kids, I was a competitive, everyday runner, competitive. I qualified for Boston 5 times. Even after I had my first child, Theo, I qualified. That was my goal after pregnancy. I qualified for Boston 9 months after for 2018. So I was supposed to run it in 2018 before hips and everything, but I got surprised, found out I was pregnant with Poppy, which was a good year not to do it because that was 2018 when it was terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I went to Dr. Stocks, can I run again? I wasn't asking, can I just go run casually? Like, can I run a marathon? Can I run marathons again? Can I get back potentially to my old self? And he was like, I don't have a problem with it. So there's no guarantees. So going into the surgeries, I had this hope. I mean, it seemed so far away that my ultimate pie in the sky dream was to run marathons and get back to the Boston Marathon and many others. That was my goal. But once, and going into surgery and after, that was my ultimate goal. But like I said, it seemed like it was so far away at that time. So I had to set shorter goals, that were shorter goals to get to that big goal in order to survive emotionally.
Yeah, the whole emotional process of anything when you believe you're fit and you're healthy, and all of a sudden something knocks you down. That's why I asked mentally and emotionally, how'd you handle that? And mini goals always seem to be the thing that so many athletes have told me. Because if you say, I'm going to do Boston in 8 months, and that's what I'm looking forward to, I'm going to do an Ironman in a year and looking forward to, you're going to miss the mark. Because emotionally it's very tough to do that. So when you ran Boston this year, you went into the race and you had a lot of media attention around you. You were on the Boston television shows. You were on afterwards with Meb Keflezighi, which we'll talk about. And did all that attention, because when you go and you run a race, you're concentrating on yourself and you got to get yourself ready. And there's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of logistics to do. Did that other stuff kind of set you, wow, I'm busy here. I hope I have a good race.
I mean, this is all new to me. So I thought, it's everything that's come out of this has been fun and incredible. And I actually really enjoy talking to you and talking to the media and sharing my story and getting to help people. But I did have to set some boundaries. And I feel so ridiculous even saying that, oh yeah, I'm some special person. For example, funny story, when I got to Boston that Saturday, so my whole family came, my immediate family, Ben and my kids, Theo and Poppy, and my aunt and uncle from out of town and one of my best friends and my doctor. So I had a lot of people there. So, and I wanted to make sure they were having a good time too. So that put a little bit of pressure on me worrying about everybody else. But as far as the media goes, I have a funny story. One of the local stations called me while I was in Boston and said, can you do an interview today? And it was the Saturday before Boston Marathon Monday. And I'm like, well, I'm in Boston. And he was like, well, can you do it from your hotel today or tomorrow? And I'm thinking, as much as I would love to share my story with you, I was like, I'm with my family and I've got to mentally prepare to run 26 miles. So ultimately I had to turn him down. And I said, but I'd be happy to interview with you after Boston. And he didn't want that. He wanted it the night before, Zoom from my hotel room or something. Yeah. So whatever. I said no. It just wasn't it wasn't worth it. The priority was my race. And I did tell a couple other local channels, and they totally respected it. They care about me, that I didn't want to do any interviews that week before. I think I cut it off at Friday or Monday. So yeah, leading up to it, it was a blast. But then that week I kind of needed to focus. And I did the one after the race, which was kind of spontaneous, and that was a blast. But yeah, having the kids there, having my family there, trying to make sure, worrying about everybody, the logistically, and my kids not getting us kicked out of the hotel because they were running around, it, I wouldn't recommend if you're trying to have like your goal PR race to bring a bunch of your kids and do all this stuff ahead of time. But like I said, this was my first one back. It was my victory lap. So I was willing to sacrifice a little stress to have everybody there and be a part of it.
Before the race and after the surgeries, Carrie, there had to be a time when all of a sudden you went out and you started running slowly and the whole deal. And then all of a sudden you started getting your running gait back. You started getting your flow back. And runners, you know what that means. Was there one specific run you went out and said, oh my God, I think I'm going to be back? Was there one, moment that happened out there when you were working out?
There were several. My whole gait changed. I don't know about you, but my whole gait has changed because your body has to adjust to these siblings or sibling for you coming into the house. I remember, I don't know about you, but I remember being so sore in my shins, everything, my feet, other muscles, because everything's having to move around and adjust. So yeah, it felt a little bit awkward at first. I started super slow from walking to just jogging a minute, just to, you're not supposed to go from 0 to hero. As I started to train for my first half marathon, I'm just thinking out loud. I remember running an 8-mile run one day. It wasn't super fast. And I remember feeling like I had forgotten that I had hip replacements. And there were several of those where you don't even think about it. Now, I wasn't as fit as I used to be, but the fact that I wasn't even thinking about it makes me think that was one of the moments where it's like, all right, I'm getting back to myself. And then obviously when I did run the races, and being in those races and being a part of it again, it was like, I had gotten it stolen from me I had it stolen from me for so many years, and now I get to come back. So those moments were really cool where I was like, all right, I'm getting back. I feel like I'm in my rhythm again.
My aha moment was on the bike because I ride much more than I run. And I was out with a couple buddies and we're doing this climb, and it was probably 2.5 months after the surgery. And it wasn't a long ride. It was like 30 miles, but we had a couple pretty good climbs, and we were climbing, and I started thinking about my breath and oxygen. I go, God, I'm not breathing hard. This is okay. I forgot completely. And then the second climb, one of my buddies goes, look at you. You're climbing like you didn't even have a hip. I go, oh my God, that's right. This thing is unbelievable. It's like we're brand new, isn't it?
Right. I think that is one of the coolest points that we should emphasize is if you have to have this done, it's really cool when you forget that you have these, because we can't see them. Like if you get a prosthetic leg, you see it. We can't see it. And when you forget about it, when you're doing what you love and being active, that's awesome.
Exactly. And it was just one of those moments where, wow, there it was. And mine, I had to wait a year because I knew at the end of 1 year, the hip's a little bad. Let me get through one more year of Ironman announcing, which was, then I was doing the plasma, the PT, the pills, because I didn't want to limp with the one I was limping, and I didn't want to limp at a race, the ego and the whole deal. But friends of mine like, Mel and Dave Downey and others knew that I was hurting, but I couldn't wait to get it done. But everybody asked me, what do you wish you would have done? I said, earlier. I wish I'd have done it earlier. Why did I wait? Exactly. And it is very cool that your Dr. Stocks came to the Boston Marathon. And tell us what you did for him when you came back, what you gave him.
Oh, the gift? He's just incredible. He's a godsend. My miracle doctor, I just adore him. If you can probably tell how I talk about him. So he flew out there with his son and came out there and wore one of those turquoise sweatshirts that I had for my whole, cheer squad. I had been thinking, like, what can I give Dr. Stocks that's special? So I ended up giving him my crinkled up bib, Boston Marathon bib, and wrote him a message on it. And then I went to the little custom frame store down the street and printed out a couple pictures so that it's the bib, my Boston bib, which is symbolic for so many reasons. And then me crossing the finish line, a picture of me crossing the finish line and a picture of us. And I think he is hanging in his office.
Oh, of course he does. And he's probably telling the story to everybody when they come on in.
He's like a proud dad, and I love it.
Beautiful. Tell us a little bit about Meb. You went through the RunDot program. Meb Kavlesky is our guru running coach for RunDot, and you were on the interview with him afterwards. To have a Boston Marathon champion, New York City Marathon champion, Olympic medal winner like Meb in your corner, that has to feel awful good.
Oh, like the fact, just all these little gifts that lined up along the way, like from Dr. Stocks to getting a Boston bib, because I didn't qualify. We can talk about that. I got gifted a bib to Boston from the medical community, which I'll go back and talk about. But that was just like a miracle. And then getting Meb as my coach, like I was like, I couldn't have made this up or dreamt it up. So yeah, Meb and I worked together for over about a year. He knew that Boston was the goal, and just getting to talk to him weekly and get to know him as a friend was so fun. And and then to find out not only was he going to be at Boston with me, he was going to be announcing. Like the stars just kept aligning. But yeah, just getting to know him and to have him in my corner rooting for me, and getting to also be a part of all of this comeback was so special and incredible for both of us. And he was there when I crossed the finish line and gave me my medal, which I might as well just die.
You're blessed. I know.
I had my doctor there, my family, crossed the Boston Marathon finish line, which we knew it was going to happen eventually. I had a feeling, but we didn't know it would happen this soon. And then to have Meb giving me my medal, and then we're going up in the ESPN booth. It's like, all right, I think I've peaked at life now. Like I'm good. Kidding, but.
With all this, you've become an inspiration, a motivational person without it really even speaking. Your actions speak so loud, your words sometimes don't need to be heard. But are you able now to talk to others? Are you getting on forums? Are the medical profession, you said earlier that you are the guinea pig, and other surgeons are probably going, hey, I've got a 45-year-old that needs a hip or two, and now I can talk to him differently. Are you in those situations?
I've done a couple, and I'm interested in it, and we'll have to talk offline about that because I'd love your advice. The hip company actually invited me last year to give a speech at their national sales meeting. It was in the Woodlands for all the reps for Johnson & Johnson. That make the hips. So that was a really cool experience. So I gave a speech to them, and I was asked to be on a panel. The BAA, at Boston asked me, Lorna, she's in charge of it, asked me to be on a panel in Boston the day before the race on Sunday with two other people who just have incredible stories. I should get them on your podcast. You would love them. So the topic was bouncing back to Boston. So that was super special.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And I've gotten to I haven't done any other necessarily speaking events yet. I'm interested. But I've gotten to message and connect with so many people around the world. And they were all tracking me during the marathon, which was so awesome and special, and leaving me messages. And I felt like it was a win for all of us.
Well, I know, Carrie, you're not done because you've got, I think, was it Utah and London you wanted to go?
You heard that on the media. So I had said I would love to do London. So I signed up for St. George, October.
Oh, okay.
So I am going to St. George.
That'll test your hips on that little downhill marathon.
Yeah. And hopefully we don't have a super hot day. I've actually never been, and I know there's an Ironman there, right?
Yeah, yes, for quite a few years.
We might have to have a little pep talk before that because I'm kind of worried about the altitude, but I've heard it's one of the most beautiful courses. It's been on my bucket list.
It is.
So I'm doing that one in October. I'm going with my mom, not going with a lot of people. I'm doing that one. And then London's always been on my bucket with the world majors. I mean, I obviously, they're super expensive to get to. It's probably not in the cards right now with having two kids and still paying off my medical bills. But and that ultimately, I was telling Dr. Stocks that my goal is in the next however many years, 5, 20, 30, who knows, to run the majors. I think that would be really fun to see those cities. So London is the one I would probably go for. I've done New York and Chicago before hips, but I would love to do London. And so we're kind of figuring out, can we pull this off? I don't know. I need to kind of do a little research on it and see about if there's a way I could get out there in April. But no, there's no guarantees.
I love your comment. I've done New York and Chicago before hips.
Yes.
And now there's after hips.
Yes. It's like before Jesus and after Jesus. Yes. BH and AH.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
Carrie, why does running make you a better person, make you a better wife, mom, a better friend? What is it about running with Carrie Bradshaw's life, in Carrie Bradshaw's life, that keeps you complete?
Well, like you said, I'm a lot nicer of a person when I am training and running. The endorphins, it helps me. It's a stress release, being a mom. I'm not as grumpy. And when I had it taken away from me for a few years, I emotionally, not only was I dealing with the hip pain, but to have that part of my identity taken away was just devastating. So getting to have a second chance again after going through that big setback, just it's like a rebirth, like a second chapter in my running story. And I just appreciate it so much more than I ever have, even on the days that are really hard. But to go back to your original question, yeah, it makes me a better person. I love setting goals. And that's how I got through the recoveries and everything after the hip replacement surgeries. And it was from, I think, being a marathon runner. I think that marathons are kind of a metaphor for life. I love setting goals, whether they're small or big, and going after them and challenging myself. I want to teach my kids that because I just think it's so great for our confidence when we put ourselves out there and challenge ourselves and achieve it.
You just about answered my next question, because runners, athletes, no matter what, they go through the hills and valleys of working out. Not every workout, not every run, not every time on the bike is like the best. And They go through lulls and they go through lows and highs, and you've got to try to keep that balance. I was going to ask you, what's your advice for runners and athletes that find themselves all of a sudden, they go, what the heck is going on? I've had a week of crap and I'm in good shape. And how do you see them, or advice for them to pull themselves out of that?
I go through that. I went through that a lot during my training for leading up to Boston. So I think you just have to go back to your why. I mean, I'm trying to think what I would tell myself. It's easy for me to give advice to everybody else, like I'm the expert, but I struggle with that as well. You just have to go back to your why. And I tell myself, I don't know about you, but I tell myself that there's a very small percentage. I'm not sure what it is. We could probably kind of ballpark it. Maybe 20% of your runs are awesome, maybe less. And not all of them are going to be awesome. If they were all awesome and easy and those amazing stars align, the stars align runs, it wouldn't make it special. That's kind of like going back to the Ironman or going back to the marathon. So I think it's good to have those bad days where you're almost doubting yourself and you're like, oh, that was horrible. I hit the wall. It was just a horrible run, because I just think that's like life. It makes you appreciate the really good ones. And that's kind of ultimately what keeps us going back for more. I mean, it would be kind of, as fun as it would be to always have a PR, it would kind of be boring.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a whole lot of fun. It would end up very boring.
Right. It'd be fun at first, but then you're like, it keeps you hungry. Like, I was actually trying to qualify at Boston. I thought I was thinking, if there's maybe a chance, I wasn't sure where I was fitness wise, that if I have a really good day, I could qualify for Boston at Boston for 26. And I didn't have the best day, but I was happy regardless.
What was your time at Boston this
3:51.
year? Nothing wrong with that.
It was okay. I mean, yes, I'm proud of it. But, I was
After hips, okay.
So
what'd you run before hips?
My PR was a 3:09.
09, okay.
But that was 10 years ago. after kids and hips, and I'm just coming back. So in Boston, well, is a beast. It's a very tricky course. As you know.
You'll get there again. I have no doubt. So,
Yeah.
Carrie, my last question on Find Your Finish Line is always the same. It comes out of I've got friends that race the Baja 1000 here. I've actually sat second seat in one of those trophy trucks, and it's insane. But afterwards, all the racing down there, they get together and they sit around a table and they call it table racing, where they reminisce about the event or another event or something that happened during the event. So table race with us. We're sitting down at the table and you're just reminiscing about something that happened at an event or an event. What would that be?
Okay, I would love to do that in person too. Do y'all usually have a beer or a glass of wine too?
Yeah, of course. Are you kidding me?
Recently, the most recent one that comes to mind is the Boston Marathon. Mm-hmm. Not the finish when I was with Bev, although that was so special. It was a point in the race that was symbolic of everything I've been through. At mile 15 in the Boston Marathon, I fell. This past marathon, I fell down. I slipped on some of the cups. You know how the cups are everywhere in the gels?
Yeah.
I slipped on some cups and fell down at just before around mile 15, and it threw me off. It hurt. My knee was bleeding. And I just remember it felt like it took forever for me to get up. I was kind of panicked because I thought I could get trampled because there's so many people, right? This sweet man stopped his race and helped me up during that moment when I was on the ground. You know, I'd been knocked down, and helped me up. And he was willing to even stay there with me. And I put my hand on his shoulder. That's all I could say in the moment with everything going on, and let him know I'm fine. You go ahead without me. I posted it on my Instagram page after I was telling the story about it. And I was like, if anybody knows who this man is, or if you come across my story, let me know. I would love to thank you, in person. But yeah, that moment, I do think that's what it's all about. Two things: helping each other in this community. He was my angel in that moment. And second, after that fall, I cried. I was running and crying. And like I said, it threw me off mentally. I saw my family about a half a mile up, which gave me a boost. And then I realized, wait a second, I fell down, and I'm off right now. I'm shook up, but this is exactly what happened with my hips. It's literally, I fell down. It was, I got knocked down. And so I can do this. Just get back up. We're just going to get back up and take it mile by mile. So those little short goals. And so I gave myself a pep talk, and I'm like, it's almost like not a blessing, but it was a great reminder that I've come so far, and I've used those lessons that I learned from my recoveries and applied them to this little small incident that happened during the race when I fell down. I got myself back up and gave myself a pep talk and said, just keep going. This is nothing compared to what you've overcome.
You got back up. That is the lesson for all of us, because we're always going to get knocked out. I guarantee that. There's sure things in life, change and getting knocked down. You just have to get back up and adjust. Well, Carrie, this has been an honor and a pleasure to have you on. You're a bright light, that is for sure.
Aww.
And I hope people, how can they follow you and talk to you, and where can they find you?
Well, you're a bright light as well, and I've loved being on here with you, and I would love to talk more. They can right now I have an Instagram account, and my handle is Bionic Runner Babe. And
I know. I love
my
that.
name is Carrie Bradshaw. So for those of you that follow the show Sex and the City, it's easy to remember. Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm Carrie Bradshaw, Bionic Runner Babe. I'm kind of just tracking my journey as I go along after my hips, and I'm excited to kind of see what's next.
Well, I told my wife, I said, I've got a guest coming on like yesterday. And I said, tomorrow I've got a guest coming on. And her name's Carrie Bradshaw. And she was walking away from me, and she stopped. She goes, what? What? Are you kidding me? Because she watched it all. I go, no, that's her name. But,
yeah. No, I get it all the time. It's awesome. Yeah. Her name. Yeah. Tell her that. Yeah. I'll have to send her. So side note, a radio station or a magazine local in Boston, a local magazine or radio station posted an article after the Boston Marathon. And this was so funny. They, had the superlatives, best costumes. Well, I made the magazine. I am just like, your girl next door. They said closest to a celebrity. And they had a guy that was dressed as Larry Bird. And then they said a Carrie Bradshaw, the girl who finished with the hip replacements, but not that Carrie Bradshaw. They linked me, and then they linked Sarah Jessica Parker. So they love. I mean, they found out about me, and they listed. I made the article, and so did Sarah Jessica Parker.
Well, one day I hope you get to meet Sarah Jessica Parker.
I should.
She should want to meet you. I'll tell you that right now.
Right.
Carrie, thank you very much. It was nice meeting your husband off the air before. Give your kids a hug. They're our life, and you take care of yourself. And we'll talk anytime you want to talk.
Yeah, and I want to hear all about your hip stories too off there.
I've told you enough already.
Okay.
Thank you again, and thank you everybody for listening to another podcast, Find Your Finish Line. And I heard something the other day that I always write these little tidbits down. It says, you know what? It's not as serious as you think. And I just love that, because we get overwrought with, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. It's not as serious as we think. So take care of yourselves out there, everybody. Stay safe. Until the next time, I hope you find your finish line. Aloha.